Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kendra Titley and I will be your moderator. Before we begin, please note that this press conference includes simultaneous and sign language interpretation services. It's available either in full French or full English. If you're watching live, you can find our stream in each language on YouTube. Simply search our channels at City of Ottawa or Ville d'Ottawa. A note to media outlets joining us on Zoom: if you would like audio interpretation, click the interpretation globe icon in the bottom menu, then select your preferred language, and you can ask your questions in the language of your choice. Today, we will be hearing remarks from Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, Wendy Stephenson, Interim City Manager, and Renee Amilcar, General Manager, Transit Services Department. Available to answer questions from the media, we also have Matt Peters, Acting Director, Engineering Services, Joel Lemieux, Acting Director, Transit Service Delivery and Rail Operations, Nicolas Truchon, Chief Executive Officer, Rideau Transit Group, and Enrique Martinez Asencio, General Manager, Rideau Transit Maintenance. At this time, I would like to invite His Worship, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, to say a few words.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Before I give the floor to René for an update on the reopening of the LRT service on Monday, I wanted to tell you that I had a very productive meeting today with the representatives of the Rideau Transit Group. I was very frank with them on what we, the citizens of Ottawa, expect from them. I asked for and I obtained a commitment, a firm commitment from them for them to work with OC Transpo and the other agencies to put in place permanent solutions in order to provide the service that we deserve.
Just before Renee provides an update on the plans to expand light rail service on Monday, I wanted to advise everyone that today I had a productive meeting with representatives from Rideau Transit Group. I was very candid with them on what the people of Ottawa expect. I asked for and received a firm commitment from them that they will work with OC Transpo and the other contractors to implement permanent solutions and deliver to Ottawa residents and OC Transpo passengers the service that we deserve. I emphasized our principles of safety, transparency, and collaboration. We talked about the interim measures that will be required to maintain a safe service while the redesign is taking place. We also discussed the specific steps required to achieve permanent rather than short-term solutions. And we spoke about what needs to be done, including enhanced maintenance, to prepare for fall and winter conditions. Our team at the City of Ottawa and at OC Transpo will remain actively engaged with RTG, with Alstom, and with the other members of the consortium to ensure we're following the recommendations of the public inquiry and that we are implementing the conclusions from the root cause analysis. We will continue working together to deliver consistently safe, reliable service, the service that Ottawa residents expect and deserve. I'm encouraged that if we remain committed to our principles of safety, transparency, and collaboration, we can get to the level of reliability within the system and that we will finally have the service that we paid for. Again, I'm encouraged by the fact that we are working together, talking openly, sharing everything we can with the community, and starting to address the root causes. And with that, I'll hand it over to our interim city manager, Wendy Stephenson.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. And as I've said before, I appreciate how much this LRT service disruption has inconvenienced our customers across the city for the past 4 weeks. We're anticipating the return of LRT service on Monday. And again, I want to thank our customers and all the residents for their patience as we get closer to the resumption of service for all of our Line 1. While the suspension of service has been frustrating, the work we've undertaken to date has been focused on the safe resumption of service and really establishing that path for a permanent axle fix. And as Mayor Sutcliffe mentioned, safety and transparency have been our focus throughout this difficult time. We remain committed to keeping the public informed every step of the way. I'm going to hand it over to Renee, who's going to provide you with more details on the work that's going to be completed this weekend as we get ready to reopen the full line. Over to you, Renee. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Wendy. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Before I provide today's update, I would like to speak directly to our customers. Thank you for your patience over the last 24 days. I know this disruption has been difficult and continues to have an impact on your daily life. Today, I can tell you that RTG has completed the adjustments to the restraining rails at all 16 locations. Je veux prendre quelques minutes pour m'adresser.
I'd like to take a couple of moments to talk to you. I've been asking you to trust us for 24 days and more specifically to be patient. I know that your patience has its limits and I'm not taking that for granted. So I'd like to thank you for your patience once again.
Testing will start today to ensure that there is no contact between the restraining rail and the wheels of the train. This is the last requirement of the safety note from RTG and ALSOM that needs to be fulfilled. Once we have confirmation from this testing that all the work is complete, OC Transpo, together with TRA, will then conduct a review of RTG's documentation to confirm that the requirements for the restart of full Line 1 service have been met. This is a similar process to what we did last weekend to confirm the system was safe to resume partially the service. Under the city's delegation of authority agreement, City Council has delegated to the interim city manager, Wendy Stephenson, the authority and responsibility to oversee the regulatory regime. Once our review of the documentation is complete, I will recommend to the interim city manager that the system is safe to resume service. In parallel to this work, RTG also continues the required replacement of the wheel hub assemblies on the train fleet. There are 26 trains now ready. This work helps increase the number of cars available to go into service. We have made a lot of progress, but there is still a lot of work remaining to ensure we can begin service on the entire line as planned on Monday, August 14th. This is our goal. The team will be working throughout the weekend to ensure we are ready to welcome customers on the O train between Blair and Tunis Pasteur on Monday. I'm confident that this team will meet this goal. We will continue to provide updates on our progress. We know that our service plan for Monday will have 11 single car trains provide service every 5 minutes during the morning peak period. 13 single car trains will provide service every 4 minutes during the afternoon peak period. During the rest of the day and on weekends, 9 single car trains will provide service every 6 minutes. The team is focused on the restoration of service. Over the next 2 days, trial running will be taking place to ensure that all train systems are functioning properly. Stations will be cleaned and checked to ensure they are ready to welcome customers back. Before we take your questions, I want sincerely to thank my team and RTG for their collaboration and hard work to resolve these issues. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Renee. I will now invite each media agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with a follow-up. We'll now start with Matthew Cooper at CBC Ottawa.
Thank you. I guess my first question would be how long will R1 service continue as you start to run the full length of the O train rail?
Thank you very much for the question. So the plan for now is to run around as today on Monday, and we should remove the errand service for Tuesday, but we'll let people know on probably with my memo that I will send on Sunday night.
As far as some of the weather that we had yesterday, flooding and leaks in flooding in transitway station leaks and an LRT station. What update can you provide on what's being done to address the effects of the recent rainfall?
Joel, please.
So in terms of rail stations, Parliament, we've identified a catch basin issue. The city is working closely with RTG to address that currently. There was a little bit of water at Rideau. That was a very small amount that came in there. That's stable. We had some water at Searville Station as well. That there were no effects of that. The infrastructure was checked and everything looks good. At Queensway Station, the upper level where the buses still travel was flooded. The flooding was cleared and it was reopened about 7 this morning. No damage to the infrastructure. Underneath is a stage 2 light rail construction area, and I'm afraid I don't have any information on the impacts there.
Thank you, Joel. We'll now go to Chris Curris at City News Ottawa.
Good afternoon, everyone. What kind of ridership are you expecting on Monday? Considering it's summer, people on vacation, but I imagine that some people are still hesitant to maybe take the trains.
Thank you for the question. So for sure, I invite everyone to jump on the train and to see that the train will run very well. You're right, during August, normally we don't have a huge ridership. However, I think maybe people will be just curious to see, and they will come, and we will welcome them as for sure, and we'll be ready for the crowd in September as well.
You ran single car trains this past week or this week that just happened, and you're planning to do that for at least August. How have you found that has worked for commuters? Has there been good, has people said it's gone well? Has there been any confusion?
Joel?
So far, the feedback has been very positive. We haven't heard any negative feedback about the single car train operations in terms of people being able to position themselves on the platforms. We have good signage in place and lots of outreach staff to assist, and we'll continue that through next week. As far as how the service has been running, it's been, the R1 buses have been very light where the train service is running and people are choosing to use the train. We expect that to continue once the full line is open. We will be providing that R1 service on Monday, though, just to make sure customers are able to navigate that.
Thank you. We'll now go to Josh Pringle at CTV Ottawa.
Thank you very much. You were mentioning that during the testing this weekend, one of the things you'll be looking at in the eastern section of the system that's still not open, you'll be looking to make sure there's no contact between the restraining rail and the wheel. Have you seen any contact so far this week in the one curve just east of Rideau Station, which I believe had to be readjusted before that section opened? And is there any way that you can monitor that in real time as service resumes, the contact between the restraining rail and the wheel?
Matt, please.
Thank you for your question. The section of restraining rail that you're referring to just east of Rideau Station, as we've mentioned previously, that restraining rail has temporarily been removed, and there's a small temporary speed restriction in place that meets up with our maintenance requirements. So when those brackets are completed and remanufactured, that we'll put those back in place, and that's estimated within the next couple of weeks to be completed.
Thank you very much. Then I go to Blair Crawford at the Ottawa Citizen.
Just a quick question. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but do you have ridership numbers for this week with the partial service on the east line, how it compares to what it was before the shutdown?
Thank you for the question. I don't have the ridership, but we have a sense, and Joel can comment on that. However, probably in September at Transit Commission, I should be able to have some data to share with councillors and with you for sure.
Okay, thanks very much.
Our experience has been that the ridership has been similar to pre-shutdown ridership in terms of the volumes we're seeing out there on line 1 in the west.
Thank you. Blair, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Nous allons maintenant à Rosalie Sinclair, Radio-Canada.
Rosalie Sinclair de Radio-Canada. Hello. My first question is for Mr. Sutcliffe. There's been talk of compensating passengers. As mayor, do you think that users or passengers should be compensated for the shutdown of the service? Answer. Well, that's a very important question. Thank you for your question. But that's a decision for the City Council. There's a lot of information and a lot of data that we still need to gather before we're able to make a decision one way or the other. If there is an opportunity to find money to compensate people, I am open to that. All options are on the table, but we need much more information, much more data before we're able to take a decision. But it is important to point out that if we do have money to spend on this compensation, well, that money is taxpayers' money. So basically what's happening is robbing Peter to pay Paul. If it costs some millions of dollars to do that, well, that means that we'll have to make cuts in other services elsewhere. So it's important to point out that there's a cost. It would cost a lot of money to compensate riders, but it is an option. And we'll be having a conversation at City Council to decide what the best possible solution is. Thank you very much. Follow-up question now from Ms. Almacar. So tests will be undertaken during the weekend. They're already underway today. How can you be sure that the service will be restored Monday? Thank you for your question. Well, our experts are working with us. So we've finished the work that we had to do on the restraining rails. Now we're doing tests. We'll make the necessary adjustments if the tests are not conclusive. And then we have to make sure that we'll have a lot of trains out on the track so that we have as many vehicles available as possible. Each time we change the axle on the train, and that was one of Alstom's recommendations in their safety note, and to change the axles every 60,000 kilometers. We have to make sure that these vehicles are working properly, and for that we have to do proper tests. Thank you. Thank you, René.
We have time for a second round of questions. If you'd like to ask an additional question, please use the raise hand function, and I'll come to you in a moment. Josh Pringle at CTV.
Thank you very much. It's been 26 days since the O train was shut down after the axle bearing issue was solved. Are you confident that there is a better system in place to detect issues and ensure the safety of transit riders today and on Monday when the service is resolved than there was 4 weeks ago?
Thank you very much for the question. Safety is paramount, and I think I have said that so many times. So if we have a doubt, we stop everything. This is something that I can tell you today. So when we will launch the service, full service on Monday, it will because we will make sure that everything is okay, and we'll continue to monitor the system as usual. And it's like that around the world. It's not only here in Ottawa. However, we have said a lot of things regarding this problem with the bearing. The long-term fix will be done with the redesign of the axle. So we have a firm engagement from RTG and Alstom that will take months. So that's why we have to we had to work with the restraining rails, and this fall we will put in place the top of the rail lubrication. We'll continue to work with the smart bugs to have a kind of tool that will tell us immediately if we have a potential problem. So we are doing our due diligence, and I can tell you today, as an engineer, I'm confident. Kendra, est-ce que tu es là?
Kendra, are you there?
Okay, why don't we go to prochaine question, Rosalie Sinclair.
Rosalie Sinclair, vous avez la. Rosalie Sinclair, you have the floor. I have more technical questions I'd like to ask. I don't know who would be the best person to answer the question. Are you talking to me? Yes, I'm talking to you. Yes, okay. I don't know if Ms. Amilcar can answer this question. But you've said that there will be tests that will be done to make sure that the system is safe and ready to restart. What are these tests exactly? And you've also said that you've replaced the axles on 26 trains. So why are you continuing to only have single car trains on the line? I'll answer that question. Well, in terms of preparing the stations, we have to get the elevators working again. They've been closed down for some time. And we'll also be putting up new signs. All this has to be done properly, as we did for the partial restart. In terms of the trains themselves, well, the new Alstom security note requires bogies 1 and 5 to never go beyond 60,000 kilometers. That means that every 6 months we'll have to replace these bogies, and that requires a lot of work because it also requires a lot of parts. So we have to give the opportunity to Alstom to provide proper service and to make sure there's no interruption in service. What we'll be doing to ensure that is to see whether we can actually work with single car trains, because this would allow us to actually serve as many passengers and provide the same level of service, but without the same level of well, for August, we'll be having only single car trains. I'm working with the team to see what we'll be doing in September. It depends on the ridership. Sometimes, for perhaps an hour in the afternoon, we might need double trains so that we can make sure that there is no interruption of service for users or passengers. But I think that we can really have the system work very, very well, which is single car trains. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I believe I cut out earlier. My apologies. Last but not least, we'll go to Matthew Cooper at CBC.
Thank you. Just returning to the R1 service, so it would be ending on Tuesday. Are there any other, what are the benchmarks that you're looking at to, I guess, justify whether or not R1 will continue to run, or whether or not you'll keep drivers on standby in case they're needed?
Joel, please.
We're pretty confident at this point that the operational plan that we have for next week will more than meet the ridership demands. However, with the R1 in place on Monday, we'll see if we're correct, and if we see that the ridership is unexpectedly high, we have plans to be able to put buses on standby at key locations or pivot back to an R1. We have a lot of different options available to us that we plan for.
Thank you. Are there any further questions today?
Sorry, could I just ask René? Maybe it would be easiest for René. That last answer that your response to that question from my colleague from Radio Canada, if you could maybe explain in English why or how long we will be having single car service on the LRT.
Sure, thank you. So we will run single car trains because that will help to mitigate the new safety regime that we have to implement, which consists to change all axles for bogie 1 and 5 every 60,000. We cannot go above 60,000 kilometers. And the ridership now permits us to do that. However, for September, I will come back with something to make sure that we will be able to face with the crowd. And one of the things that we have in mind now, it will be combination, sometimes maybe 1 hour in the afternoon peak, just to make sure that we can deliver good service to our customers. We will probably have double trains, but most of the time probably we'll stay with the single car until the ridership come back. And if the ridership come back, we'll come back for sure with another solution.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, this concludes today's media availability. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.